Welcome back to the Midnight Scientists. Wherever you are in the world, whether you are nestled beneath a pile of blankets, curled gently on a favorite chair, or simply floating in that soft, spacious pause between the day's obligations and the deep rest you deserve, I'm grateful you are here. Before we begin our slow drift into the realms of science, let me invite you to just settle. Feel the weight of your body, the quiet presence of your breath. Let the distant echoes of the day soften and dissolve. There is nowhere you need to be and nothing you need to do, except simply be present with the sound of my voice. Tonight, we will journey inward, not through the landscape of memory or dreams, but through the astonishing, silent architecture of your own self. If you enjoy these peaceful explorations of the cosmic and the microscopic, where wonder meets stillness, a simple like on the video and a quiet subscription to the channel is the kindest gesture. It helps us find other minds seeking this calming blend of science and serenity, and for that, I offer my deepest thanks. Chapter 1: The Quiet Promise of Five Senses. Now, as you begin your descent into calm, consider a very old idea, a comfortingly tidy, ancient notion, an idea that has traveled across 2 millennia to whisper its certainty into modern textbooks. It is the idea of the five senses. Imagine yourself standing in the gentle, hazy sunlight of ancient Greece, perhaps in the Lyceum, a philosophical sanctuary where the great mind of Aristotle once walked. Around 2,300 years ago, give or take a philosophical scroll, this singular, colossal thinker looked upon the world and sought to categorize human experience. He observed the flicker of light entering the eyes, sight. He observed the vibration of air against the eardrum, hearing. He noted the chemical detection of molecules in the air, smell, and on the tongue. And finally, he categorized the pressure and texture felt upon the skin, touch. 5. A perfect, pleasing number. A number that aligns so beautifully with the 5 fingers on a hand or the 5 points of a star. It was neat, it was complete, it was wonderfully, logically Greek. And because Aristotle was Aristotle, a mind of towering genius, his classification stuck. Drift with me now and visualize this idea traveling like a smooth, polished stone rolling through history. It tumbles from ancient scrolls into the heavy, leather-bound texts of the medieval era. It finds a welcome home in the illuminated manuscripts of the Renaissance. It crosses oceans and centuries, finally nesting itself deep inside the primary schoolbooks of your own childhood. The list was easy to memorize, easy to teach, and deeply satisfying in its perceived symmetry. 5 doors to experience the universe. No more, no less. But like many beautiful, tidy ideas inherited from antiquity, it turns out to be only the opening chapter of a much, much longer book. The simple truth is that the human body, your body, as you lie here, is a far more complex and nuanced instrument than any philosopher could have fully mapped with only observation and logic. Aristotle, for all his brilliance, did not have access to the soft glow of fMRI brain scans. He could not chart the tangled, whispering pathways of the vagus nerve. He did not know that tiny, shimmering crystals floating in fluid deep within your inner ear could orchestrate your stability against the ceaseless pull of gravity. He did not know the precise mechanism by which you can close your eyes and still, with perfect accuracy, touch your fingertip to your nose. These too are sensations. They are real, measurable, deeply important signals that flow continuously through the dark rivers of your nervous system. Yet they find no home in the tidy, classical list of 5. So the question lingers, why did that number hold on for so long? Perhaps it is due to what scientists call historical inertia. Once an idea gains enough momentum, it becomes self-sustaining, repeated in classrooms and embedded in culture until it feels less like a concept and more like a simple, undeniable fact. Culturally, we crave simplicity. We prefer a small, manageable catalog of experiences. 5 senses are far easier to discuss, illustrate, and absorb than, say, the 17, 20, or even 30 distinct sensory systems that modern neuroscientists now debate. The sheer complexity of defining a sense is part of the challenge. Is a sense defined by a unique kind of receptor, by a distinct neural pathway, or must it rise to the level of conscious awareness? Scientists still debate the technicalities, but the consensus is profoundly clear. The traditional 5 are merely the headliners, the loud, vibrant soloists in a vast, hidden orchestra. Beneath the surface of your conscious attention, the quiet, tireless ensemble is always playing. Consider for a moment balance. You are not aware of it most of the time. You simply stand, or sit, or walk. But without a dedicated, unique system operating deep inside your head, the vestibular system, you would be a wobbly, confused marionette. This is not touch, nor is it sight. It is a standalone, gravity-tuned system silently working in the background, a gyroscope keeping your world from spinning out of control. Or consider pain. It is so often lumped in with touch, but the two are profoundly different. Touch tells you that something is there. Pain tells you that something is wrong. Pain possesses its own highly specialized nerve endings, known as nociceptors, or, politely, the body's internal alarm system. They are tuned to detect damage, crushing pressure, scalding heat, corrosive chemicals. They dispatch urgent, unmistakable messages up the spinal cord to the brain, prioritizing survival over comfort. Without this essential sense, you would never know to pull your hand from a hot stove or rest a sprained ankle. Pain is a ferocious, difficult teacher, but it is an essential one. And then there is temperature. Feeling the difference between an icy breeze and a warm stone is not merely a variation of touch, it is the detection of energy itself. You possess dedicated thermoreceptors in your skin and deep within your organs that sense changes in thermal energy, both on the surface and within your core. That sudden, exhilarating jolt of cold water, or the deep, radiating warmth of a fireplace, these are not part of the classic 5, yet they are undeniably, measurably a sense. Even in the darkest room, with your eyes closed, you never have to guess where your body parts are. You simply know. This profound awareness, which we call proprioception, tells your brain about the tension in your muscles, the angle of your joints, and the continuous location of your limbs in 3-dimensional space. It is a full-body, continuous GPS that is so reliable you rarely give it a second thought. It is the silent, invisible choreographer of all your movements, from the simplest stretch to the most complex dance. And finally, consider the deep, internal dialogue, the sense of what is happening inside your private hidden realm. This is interoception. It is the awareness that signals hunger, the tension of a full bladder, the flutter of the heart during a sudden scare, or the slow, rhythmic expansion of your lungs. These sensations do not register on the skin or on the tongue. They are gathered by a vast, intricate network of internal sensors, silently reporting on your deepest physiological state. They are crucial for your survival, for maintaining your well-being, and for shaping your emotional world. When you begin to combine these fundamental, dedicated systems, proprioception, vestibular sense, nociception, pain, thermoception, temperature, and interoception, with the classical 5, the picture of human sensation expands dramatically. The 5 senses are like the bright, bold headlines on a newspaper. The hidden senses are the rich, vital stories unfolding on the deeper pages. The full sensory picture is expansive, textured, and quietly extraordinary. It is a subtle humility that comes with this realization. So much of your experience, so much of your effortless navigation of the world relies upon systems you never consciously acknowledge. The body, in its wisdom, handles the intricate details so the conscious mind can focus on the big picture. But for tonight, we will invite your conscious mind to gently linger on these details. We will slow down and listen to the subtle pulses, the silent balances, the hidden stretches, and the essential internal signals that make you wonderfully, intricately you. So, as you rest, imagine standing in a dark room. Your eyes are softly closed. Yet, without hesitation, you lift your hand, and with serene accuracy, your fingertip meets the tip of your nose. It is a feat of invisible, internal choreography. Proprioception is about to reveal its secrets. Drift with me now, and let us peer through the veil of the obvious into the inner map of the body. The tiny, dedicated sensors in your muscles and joints are ready to begin their nightly report. They are preparing a continuous, real-time map of your position. But what happens when that map is suddenly wiped blank? How does the mind navigate a body it can no longer feel? We will find out as we descend further. Chapter 2: The Invisible Navigator. Drift deeper now if you are able, and hold that image we closed with, the soft darkness, the eyes closed, and the quiet certainty of your fingertip finding your nose. It is such a simple, perfect act. It is a moment of quiet, invisible choreography, a profound testament to the body's innate, unquestioning self-knowledge. You do not search, you do not grope, you just know where your hand is and where your nose is, and your entire system brings the two together with a grace that defies conscious effort. This seamless, moment-to-moment self-awareness is the domain of proprioception. The name itself whispers its purpose. It comes from the Latin roots, proprius, meaning one's own, and perceptio, meaning perception. Proprioception is, quite literally, the perception of one's own self, but not in an abstract philosophical way. It is the deep, cellular knowledge that your foot is beneath you, your head is tilted slightly to the left, and the muscles in your shoulder are holding your weight at a precise angle. It is your brain's internal GPS system, a continuous, full-body weather report for your structure, always updated, always active, and almost always unnoticed. Unlike sight, which drinks in light from the external world, or hearing, which captures the air's vibrations, proprioception is an entirely internal sense. It is your body's relentless way of keeping track of itself, a silent, dedicated bookkeeper recording every shift, stretch, and strain. The very reason you have likely never stopped to think about this sense is because it works so flawlessly, so reliably, that it has rendered itself gloriously forgettable. It is the backstage crew that never misses a cue, ensuring the star performer, you, can move with effortless confidence. To understand this quiet miracle, we must journey inward, deep within the protective sheaths of your muscles, joints, and tendons. Here, nestled among the fibers, are the specialized microscopic sensors that power this internal map. They are the twin guardians of movement, the muscle spindles and the Golgi tendon organs. Imagine the muscle spindles as miniature, finely tuned scrolls wrapped around the individual muscle fibers. Their singular purpose is to monitor length. As you perform a stretch, say reaching languidly for a pillow, the spindle stretches too. It instantly fires off signals up your spinal cord, broadcasting a message to the brain. Alert, we are lengthening over here. We are getting longer. This constant communication allows your nervous system to know with exquisite precision the exact length and speed of change in every muscle, ensuring your movements are fluid and your muscles are not overextended. If a muscle is stretched too quickly, the spindle triggers an immediate, automatic reflex contraction, the swift, protective tightening that helps prevent injury. This is the same, almost electrical jolt that causes your knee to kick when a doctor taps the right spot. It is the body's instant safety net. Now, meet the Golgi tendon organs, the quiet cousins. These sensors are situated right where the muscle fibers meet the tough, silvery tendon, the anchor point to the bone. Their specialty is not length, but tension. They are the internal strain gauges, measuring precisely how much force is being generated during a contraction. When you lift a heavy mug or push against a stubbornly closed door, the Golgi tendon organs are weighing in, reporting the exact load. If the tension becomes dangerously high, these organs send a powerful signal that inhibits the muscle's activity, forcing it to briefly relax. It is the body's built-in structural integrity check, preventing a tear or an overuse injury before the damage can even begin. Now, meet the Golgi tendon organs, the quiet cousins. These sensors are situated right where the muscle fibers meet the tough, silvery tendon, the anchor point to the bone. Their specialty is not length, but tension. They are the internal strain gauges, measuring precisely how much force is being generated during a contraction. When you lift a heavy mug or push against a stubbornly closed door, the Golgi tendon organs are weighing in, reporting the exact load. If the tension becomes dangerously high, these organs send a powerful signal that inhibits the muscle's activity, forcing it to briefly relax. It is the body's built-in structural integrity check, preventing a tear or an overuse injury before the damage can even begin. Together, the spindles and the Golgi organs operate in a sophisticated, continuous dialogue, a ballet of tension and release. One monitors how far the muscle goes, the other monitors how hard the muscle pulls. This rich, real-time data stream is fed primarily to a region of your brain called the cerebellum, the silent maestro of coordination. The cerebellum integrates this proprioceptive input with signals from your inner ear and your vision, constantly fine-tuning your posture and coordinating your movements. This is why you can walk down uneven stairs, adjust your posture while sitting, or type complex words without glancing at the keyboard. It is a system of perpetual micro-adjustment. Think of the simple act of walking in the dark. You are not consciously commanding each muscle, you are simply moving. Your proprioception is the silent guide, navigating the terrain beneath you by sending continuous updates about the angle of your ankle, the flex of your knee, and the pressure beneath your foot. Without this sense, even the most mundane movement would require your full, exhausting, conscious attention. And this leads us to one of the most compelling and sobering stories in neuroscience, the account of Ian Waterman. In his early 20s, Ian contracted a rare viral infection that tragically targeted and destroyed the large sensory nerve fibers in his body, specifically those responsible for proprioception and much of his sense of touch from the neck down. His motor nerves remained intact, his muscles were still strong. He retained the ability to move, but he had lost the knowledge of movement. Visualize the moment Ian awoke. He was not paralyzed in the traditional sense, yet he felt utterly disconnected from his own body. He described the sensation not as pain, but as an internal absence, a terrifying vacuum where his self-knowledge once resided. It was as if his body had become an unfamiliar instrument, a disconnected object floating just beyond his grasp. When he tried to move an arm, he could send the motor command, but no confirming signal, no proprioceptive receipt ever returned. His brain had become a driver in a pitch-black car with no dashboard lights. He pressed the gas, but had no feedback to know if he was moving or where he was going. Ian could not sit upright, could not stand, and could not move his limbs unless he looked directly at them. To function, he had to undertake the painstaking process of remapping his entire existence. He learned to substitute the speed of light, his vision, for the slowness of internal sensation. Walking became a conscious, visually guided chore. He had to look at his feet, think about the movement, and meticulously command each step, treating his own legs as external objects. If the lights were suddenly turned off, he would immediately collapse because the invisible scaffolding of his proprioception was gone, and his visual substitute vanished with the darkness. His case is a living, breathing testament to the fragility of our effortless embodiment. It underscores how deeply the feeling of being you, the certainty of your own physical presence, relies on this tireless, subterranean stream of sensory data. Through sheer, grueling willpower and immense concentration, Ian Waterman learned to live again. He rebuilt his movement, not on feeling, but on sight and intention, demonstrating the astonishing adaptability of the human brain to forge new, difficult pathways when the easy ones fail. His struggle is a quiet reminder to the rest of us. The simple act of standing on 2 feet, of pouring a glass of water without spilling, of simply adjusting your posture beneath the covers is, in its essence, a miracle of neurological coordination. The good news is that for most of us, proprioception is not a fading light, but a sense we can actively refine. Training this sense is common in the world of specialized movement. Think of the serene focus of a Tai Chi practitioner, moving with slow, deliberate precision, or the astonishing accuracy of a gymnast performing a complex flip in midair, knowing exactly when to tuck and when to unfurl their body to ensure a perfect landing. These feats rely on proprioception dialed to an expert, almost superhuman level. Even the simple practice of yoga or stretching is, in part, a proprioceptive workout. When you settle into a deep, sustained pose, you are not merely elongating your muscles. You are gently challenging your muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs. You are teaching your nervous system to trust the stretch, to recalibrate the threshold for alarm, and to become more comfortable and more aware of its full range of motion. It is a process of internal negotiation, softly asking your body to feel more, to trust deeper, and to become more acutely aware of its own geometry. As you lie here now, perhaps you can perform a small internal experiment. Wiggle your toes very gently and notice the sensation. Feel the subtle tension in your calf muscles as you do so. Without moving, consciously bring your attention to the angle of your head on the pillow. Are you absolutely certain of your position? That quiet, unshakable certainty is the whispered voice of proprioception. It is the continuous, loving effort of your body to ensure that you always know where you are and what you are doing, even in the stillness of the deepest night. It is a core pillar of your selfhood, connecting the physical dimensions of your form to the conscious experience of your mind. Without it, the self fractures. With it, every gentle movement is a symphony. But the body's internal reporting system is not limited to position in space. There is another, even deeper sense that governs the hidden world of your internal state, the rhythm of your heart, the fullness of your lungs, the churn of your hidden organs. This is the sense that tells you not where you are in the room, but how you are faring within the secret machinery of life itself. It is the sense of interoception, and it holds the keys to your deepest feelings and your subtle physical truths. As you begin to feel the weight of your own body, anchored and known by proprioception, let your mind turn to the most delicate sensation of all, the awareness of your own heartbeat. This deep internal rhythm is the basis of self-knowledge. But how clearly can you hear its music? And what other secrets does this inner landscape hold? We will listen closer in the next chapter. Chapter 3: The Deep Dialogue of the Internal Self. Close your eyes now, if they are open, and sink deeper into the stillness. Proprioception has anchored you in space. Now we turn our awareness to the inner landscape, the boundless, intricate world contained beneath the surface of your skin. Here, there is a quiet language always being spoken, one that precedes words, visuals, or even conscious thought. It is the steady murmur of your heartbeat, the subtle tightening in your stomach before you realize you are hungry, the slow, involuntary expansion of your lungs as you take a deep, contented breath. These are not mere thoughts or reactions, they are sensations, urgent and subtle messages flowing from the body's core to the mind's command center. This silent stream of bodily awareness is governed by a profound and remarkable hidden sense: interoception. If proprioception is your internal GPS for your limbs, interoception is your internal dashboard for your organs. It is your ability to perceive the physiological state of your entire body, how things are going inside. Are you warm? Are you cold? Is your bladder full? Is your blood sugar dipping? Is your heart racing? Interoception gathers this continuous, real-time data about the condition of your tissues, fluids, and internal organs, sending updates to your brain without ever needing your permission or your conscious participation. You have experienced this sense countless times, yet rarely pause to name it. That dry tickle in your throat that demands a sip of water. The thrilling, unsettling sensation of butterflies in your stomach before a big presentation. The pervasive feeling of fatigue that settles over you after a long, draining day. These are all undeniable, felt messages from within, facilitated by this dedicated internal monitoring system. At the heart of interoception lies a beautifully complex web of sensory neurons that monitor internal conditions throughout the body. These receptors reside not just in your skin, but deep inside your heart, your lungs, the muscular walls of your gut, and your bladder. They are the tireless scouts of your inner domain. The information they gather is routed through an elaborate highway of nerves, most famously the magnificent vagus nerve, the Latin word for wandering. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve, a majestic, branching bundle of fibers that originates in the brainstem and wanders all the way down, connecting the brain to almost every major internal organ. It is the primary postal service for the brain-body axis, picking up messages about inflammation, fullness, and microbial activity from your gut and delivering them straight to the brain. Once these deep internal signals reach the brain, they are primarily processed in a remarkable structure tucked away in the temporal lobe, the insular cortex, or simply the insula. Imagine the insula as the brain's specialized integration center, a quiet, softly glowing core where the raw physical data of interoception is translated into a felt, subjective experience. It's the part of you that takes a racing heart and a churning stomach and says, "Ah, yes, this feels like anxiety," or "This deep, satisfied warmth feels like contentment." It builds an integrated, continuous picture of your internal landscape, forming the deep bedrock of emotional self-awareness. What makes interoception so fascinating is that it does not often shout. Most of the time, it whispers. The signals are constant, but they rarely rise to the level of vivid, full-blown conscious awareness unless there is a significant change, extreme hunger, sudden pain, or the urgent need for hydration. For the most part, interoception is a background hum, a quiet operating system keeping the brain informed without causing a fuss. Yet this quiet hum is central to one of the body's most critical functions, homeostasis. Homeostasis is the physiological state of internal balance, the delicate stability that keeps your blood sugar, temperature, fluid levels, and heart rate within the narrow, life-sustaining range. Interoception is the early warning system that detects any drift from this sweet spot. When your blood sugar begins to dip, the body nudges the brain with subtle hunger signals. When you become too warm, the system triggers the automatic cascade of sweating and vascular dilation. Without this sense, you would be like a highly sophisticated spacecraft with no fuel gauges or temperature monitors, still flying, but moments away from catastrophic system failure. The mind-body loop. One of the most profound roles of interoception is its function as the bridge between the body and the mind. Emotions, it turns out, are deeply, inextricably intertwined with these internal signals. The racing heart during fear, the sensation of tightness in the chest during sadness, the fluttering gut during excitement, these are not mere literary metaphors. They are genuine, physiological sensations that your brain detects via interoception and then labels as an emotional state. Some researchers even propose that emotions begin as interoceptive experiences. Your brain detects a sudden physiological shift in your body, rushes to interpret it, and then assigns it a psychological category. This rapid pulse and breathlessness must be excitement, or this sinking feeling in my abdomen must be sadness. This brain-body loop is constant and bidirectional. Your body informs your mind, and your mind can, in turn, influence your body. Thinking about a difficult memory can cause your shoulders to tense or your stomach to clench. Actively relaxing your breathing can send calming signals through the vagus nerve to your heart, slowing its rate and inducing a state of physiological calm. It is an elegant, adaptive feedback system, and the more keenly attuned your interoceptive skills, the more precisely you can navigate the subtle shifts in your mood, energy, and overall well-being. However, not everyone is equally attuned to this inner dialogue. Some individuals are highly interoceptive. They can instantly detect subtle changes in their heartbeat, register the first hint of dehydration, or sense emotional shifts just as they begin to surface. They are highly sensitive listeners to their own internal broadcast. Others are less tuned in. Their internal signals may need to be much louder or more persistent before they capture conscious attention. This can make it difficult to recognize when they are truly tired, genuinely hungry, or on the verge of emotional overwhelm, as the body's subtle whispers are often missed. The clinical spectrum reveals even greater complexity. Individuals struggling with anxiety disorders may experience heightened interoception that is also distorted. A normal fluctuation in heart rate, a completely harmless signal, is amplified by the brain, misinterpreted as a sign of imminent danger or a medical emergency, sending the anxiety spiral into overdrive. Conversely, some people with eating disorders may exhibit disrupted interoception, leading to a profound difficulty in accurately recognizing or responding to internal signals of hunger or fullness. Understanding interoception, therefore, becomes a powerful tool for self-regulation and mental health. The gateway of the breath. Of all the doors into interoception, the breath is perhaps the most powerful and accessible gateway. Unlike most internal processes, the beating of your heart, the churning of your gut, the movement of your blood, breathing possesses a unique duality. It is both automatic and controllable. Your body will continue to breathe without you giving it a single thought, yet you can take conscious control of its pace and depth at any given moment. This dual nature makes the breath the perfect anchor for internal awareness. When you shift your attention to the breath, following the cool air entering the nostrils, tracing the gentle rise and fall of the abdomen, noticing the subtle pause before the exhale, you are consciously amplifying your interoceptive sensitivity. This is why nearly every meditative or contemplative tradition throughout history features breathwork. It is not a mystical technique, but a physiological override. By slowing and deepening your breath, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch, which sends calming, soothing messages back down the vagus nerve to the internal organs. This process not only reduces the physiological signs of stress, but heightens your awareness of them, providing a sense of grounding and internal stability. It is the closest thing the body has to a manual override button for its nervous system rhythm. As you lie here, simply notice the sensation of breathing. Do not try to change it. Just observe the effortless flow. Feel the subtle shift in your posture, the faint cooling on your upper lip with each exhale, the quiet work of the diaphragm. This focused, gentle attention is the heart of interoceptive practice. Interoception is the foundational sense that gives you the lived feeling of being in a body, not just inhabiting it, but profoundly experiencing it. It translates chemical gradients, fluid pressures, and neural signals into a subjective truth that guides your survival, fuels your emotions, and defines your sense of well-being. It may not be as dramatic as the blinding light of sight or the complex tapestry of sound, but without the deep, quiet knowledge of interoception, the self would be adrift, untethered from its own biological reality. You may not hear it often, but this internal world is always speaking. And when you learn to listen, even just a little, the whispers can tell you everything you need to know. You are still, you are breathing, you are aware of your inner rhythm. But how does this quiet, internal awareness interact with the relentless pull of the physical world? In the next chapter, we will turn our attention to the silent, crystal-powered structures deep within your skull, the engineers of your equilibrium, that work tirelessly to ensure that even in the deepest rest, you do not fall. Chapter 4: The Crystal Garden of Equilibrium. You are still. Your proprioception holds the map of your resting body. Your interoception monitors the quiet rhythm of your inner organs. But even in this deepest stillness, your body is engaged in a silent, continuous struggle against the universal constant, gravity. You are not tipping over. Your head is held steady. If you were to gently shift your weight, your body would instantly compensate, making dozens of tiny, unnoticed corrections. This astonishing feat of continuous, three-dimensional balance is orchestrated by one of the most mechanically elegant hidden senses of all, a marvel of bioengineering tucked deep inside the hardest bone in your skull, the vestibular system. Imagine your inner ears, those two tiny, coiled structures. We often credit them only with the sense of hearing, the capacity to translate air vibrations into sound, but their role in survival extends far beyond listening. They house the engineers of your equilibrium, the quiet geniuses responsible for keeping you upright, oriented, and stabilized against the ceaseless pull of the earth. The vestibular system is your body's built-in gyroscope. It is a microscopic, fluid-filled complex dedicated to detecting two critical factors: head movement and head orientation relative to gravity. This complex is composed of two main types of structure, each designed to monitor a different kind of movement: the semicircular canals and the otolith organs. Don't let the names create complexity. Visualize the elegance of their design. First, the semicircular canals. Imagine three minuscule, curved tubes on each side of your head, arranged at right angles to one another, much like the axes of a gyroscope. One canal monitors movement in the up and down direction, like nodding yes. One monitors side-to-side movement, like shaking no, and the third monitors tilting, like touching your ear to your shoulder. These canals are filled with a specialized fluid called endolymph. When you turn or rotate your head, the fluid, due to inertia, momentarily lags behind the movement of the canal walls. This relative shift in fluid gently brushes against a group of tiny, delicate sensors, microscopic hair cells lining the walls of the canals. This bending of the hair cells is instantly converted into an electrical signal, which is then sent through the vestibular nerve to your brainstem and cerebellum. This signal doesn't just tell your brain that you moved, it tells it precisely how you moved: the direction, the speed, and the rotation of your head. It is a real-time, high-definition rotational sensor, powered by the simplest principles of liquid physics and biological transduction. Next, we move to the otolith organs, the utricle and the saccule, which are concerned with linear motion and gravity. These two small structures are sensitive not to rotation, but to acceleration, moving in a straight line like a car taking off or slowing down, and static tilt, the unchanging posture of your head relative to the ground. Inside the otolith organs lies a remarkable substance, a dense, jelly-like membrane embedded with countless tiny, shimmering crystals made of calcium carbonate. These are the otoconia, or ear stones. Visualize a garden of minute, shimmering crystals suspended in a delicate gel. When you tilt your head, say from the vertical position to horizontal on your pillow, gravity tugs on these dense crystals. The shifting weight of the otoconia bends the underlying sensory hair cells, and the brain receives an immediate update on your head's absolute position. When you accelerate forward or backward, the crystals also lag behind, similar to the fluid in the canals, sending a signal about that linear motion. Between the rotational input of the canals and the linear/gravity input of the otoliths, your brain receives a continuous, comprehensive, three-dimensional orientation report. It integrates this data with proprioception, where your body is, and vision, where the horizon is, to create your unwavering sense of where you are in the world. The mystery of dizziness and motion sickness. The elegance of this system only truly reveals itself when it is disrupted. This disruption manifests as dizziness or motion sickness, sensations born from a fundamental sensory mismatch. Think of the childhood game of spinning in circles. When you stop, the world continues to whirl. This is not imagination. It is your vestibular fluid still sloshing in the semicircular canals. Your eyes report a static, stopped world, but your inner ears continue to send high-volume signals to the brain that you are violently in motion. Your brain receives these conflicting messages and, unable to reconcile the visual stability with the inner motion, interprets the chaos as disorientation, or what we call dizziness. It is a temporary mutiny between your senses. This sensory conflict is also the root cause of motion sickness. Picture yourself reading a book in the backseat of a car. Your eyes are locked on the stationary page. Your visual system reports stillness, but your vestibular system feels every turn, bump, and acceleration, reporting continuous motion. The brain receives this intense disagreement and, in an ancient evolutionary interpretation, concludes, "Something is wrong. My senses are lying to me. This could be poison." The body's evolutionary response to consuming a neurotoxin is, naturally, to clear the decks, hence the feeling of nausea. Your body is overprotective, assuming any major sensory disagreement is a threat, and trying to purge the perceived poison. This is why simply looking out the car window at the distant, stable horizon helps. It aligns your visual input with the motion felt by your inner ear. The senses agree, yes, we are moving, and the brain relaxes the alarm. In more persistent cases, this elegant system can be thrown into disarray by physical issues. Vertigo, a more severe and persistent sensation of spinning, often occurs when the tiny otoconia crystals from the otolith organs become dislodged and float into one of the semicircular canals, where they do not belong. This condition, known as benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, BPV, makes specific head movements, like rolling over in bed or tilting your head back, trigger sudden, intense spinning, because the misplaced crystals are inappropriately bending the hair cells, sending false signals of movement. Thankfully, physical therapists often treat this with simple, elegant repositioning maneuvers, such as the Epley maneuver, which use gravity to gently coax the crystals back into their rightful chambers. It's like gently shaking a snow globe until the flakes settle back onto the ground. Adaptations and limits. On a day-to-day basis, your vestibular system is working with quiet, invisible dedication. It is the reason you can walk across uneven cobblestones, stand on one leg to tie your shoe, or even simply maintain an upright head posture against the constant downward pressure. The boundaries of this system are tested by specialized activities. Figure skaters and acrobats train relentlessly to suppress the reflexive dizziness that spinning causes. In their case, the brain learns to prioritize visual and proprioceptive input over the confusing, sloshing signals from the inner ear. And then there are the challenges of the final frontier, space. Astronauts in zero gravity face an unprecedented vestibular crisis. Without the constant, reliable tug of gravity, the otolith organs essentially lose their primary anchor. They can no longer tell the brain which way is up or down. This often leads to severe space motion sickness during the first few days of a mission. The brain, confused by the floating crystals and the absence of a gravitational baseline, struggles to process the conflicting signals. Fortunately, the human brain is remarkably neuroplastic. After a period of intense sensory confusion, it adapts, learning to rely more heavily on vision and proprioception to navigate the weightless environment, eventually re-establishing a new, gravity-free sense of orientation. Your sense of balance, therefore, is not a simple state. It is an active, continuous process, a quiet, three-way dance between the fluid mechanics of your inner ear, the subtle tension in your muscles, and the processing power of your brain. Next time you tilt your head to listen more intently or simply step off a curb without a second thought, pause for a moment to acknowledge the tiny engineers in your skull. The sloshing fluid, the tumbling crystals, and the constant, silent transmission of data are working in perfect, tiny harmony to keep you grounded, stable, and beautifully oriented in the great, ceaseless theater of your life. But now, let us turn to the sense that defines the limits of safety and the boundaries of wellness, the sense that protects you, even when it demands your attention with an unmistakable intensity. We will turn to the necessary protective signal known as pain. Your body is balanced, your internal map is stable, but what happens when that map highlights a critical, urgent flaw? Pain is not the enemy, it is the essential guardian. But why is the sensation of pain so variable, so flexible, and so easily influenced by the mind? We will explore the specialized sensors of damage in the next chapter. Chapter 5: The Essential Guardian, the Sense of Pain. Pain. The word itself carries a weight of aversion, of urgency. Of all the senses we possess, pain is the least welcome guest, the one we spend the most effort trying to avoid or eliminate. It is rarely appreciated in the moment, and yet, paradoxically, it is one of the most vital, foundational, and highly specialized senses in the human body. To understand pain is to recognize that it is not simply an unfortunate feeling, but a full-fledged sensory modality, a guardian, a teacher, and an essential messenger. Drift with me now, and let us approach this difficult sense not as an enemy, but as a complex neurological marvel. To define pain as a sense is to acknowledge that it has its own dedicated system of detection, transmission, and interpretation. You feel pain because certain sensory receptors in your body are tuned specifically to detect damage or the imminent threat of damage. These specialized detectors are called nociceptors, from the Latin nocere, meaning to hurt. Visualize these nociceptors as microscopic, highly selective security alarms scattered across every millimeter of your skin, nested within your muscles, joints, tendons, and lining many of your internal organs. Unlike the gentle touch receptors we discussed earlier, nociceptors are deliberately fussy. They ignore mild pressure, gentle warmth, or subtle movement. They only react when the stimulus is extreme enough to cause tissue injury. Nociceptors come in different varieties, each specializing in a unique flavor of trouble. Some are tuned to mechanical damage, responding only to intense crushing, cutting, or pinching pressure. Others react to thermal extremes, screaming at temperatures that are searingly hot or painfully cold. A third group is sensitive to chemical signals, the inflammatory compounds, acids, and transmitters released by damaged cells after an injury or infection. When a nociceptor is activated, Say, when you touch a hot stove, it generates an electrical impulse. This impulse travels rapidly along dedicated nerve fibers, the fast, sharp A delta fibers for immediate acute pain, and the slower, throbbing C fibers for dull, lingering pain through the peripheral nerves, up the spinal cord, and into the brain. There, in complex regions like the somatosensory cortex, the insula, and the anterior cingulate cortex, the signal is interpreted and processed, transforming a simple electrical discharge into the subjective, inescapable experience we call ouch. The flexibility of the alarm. What makes pain scientifically fascinating and sometimes frustrating is its remarkable plasticity. Pain is not a fixed measurement. It is not simply proportional to the tissue damage. Rather, it is an interpretation constructed by the brain, heavily modulated by context, mood, memory, and expectation. Think of the classic example of the soldier in combat who sustains a severe wound but feels no pain until hours later when the danger has passed. In that moment of intense threat, the brain, prioritizing survival above all else, releases powerful natural opioids, effectively turning the volume knob of pain down to zero. The nociceptors are firing, but the central nervous system is choosing to filter the signal. Later, in the safety of a field hospital, the cognitive framework shifts, the danger subsides, and the pain signal is finally allowed to flood through. Conversely, consider a tiny paper cut. Objectively, the tissue damage is minuscule, yet the pain can feel offensively dramatic. This disparity is partly due to nerve density. Your fingertips, lips, and face are packed with sensory receptors and nociceptors because they are critical for exploration, communication, and feeding. A high concentration of alarms in a small area ensures a disproportionately large sensory broadcast. This means pain is profoundly contextual. If you sustain an injury while feeling safe and supported, the experience is often less intense than if the same injury occurs while you are anxious, stressed, or fatigued. Your mood, your history, and your predictions about the injury's outcome all shape the final subjective experience. The brain is not merely receiving data, it is telling a story about that data, and that story is infinitely flexible. Acute versus chronic, the two faces of pain. Scientists categorize pain into two broad families, each serving a drastically different purpose. Acute pain. This is the pain of immediate injury, the pulled muscle, the brief sting of a burn, the sudden throbbing of a hammer blow to the thumb. It has a clear, identifiable cause, is usually proportional to the damage, and resolves when the tissue heals. Acute pain is protective, vital, and functional. It enforces rest, encourages caution, and compels you to treat the injury, thereby promoting healing. Chronic pain. This is a much more complex and difficult phenomenon. It persists long after the tissue damage has healed, often defined as lasting more than 3 to 6 months. Or it may arise with no clear physical cause at all. Chronic pain is not a symptom, it is a condition unto itself. In these cases, the nervous system has become maladaptive. The volume knob has been effectively stuck in the high alert position. The nociceptors and the spinal cord pathways may have become hypersensitive, continuously transmitting pain signals even when there is nothing left to protect. Chronic pain often involves deeper changes in the brain's structure, reshaping the connections responsible for processing emotion, memory, and self-awareness, coloring every aspect of a person's life. The absence of the alarm. To understand the necessity of pain, we must consider its absence. Imagine a life without the alarm system, a life where touch exists but pain is impossible. This is the reality for individuals with congenital insensitivity to pain, CIP, a rare genetic disorder. On the surface, it sounds like a liberation. No headaches, no toothaches, no agony from a minor fall. But in reality, it is profoundly dangerous. Children born with CIP often accumulate horrific injuries because they lack the essential feedback loop that compels caution. They may suffer severe burns without noticing the heat, repeatedly fracture limbs from normal play, or allow infections to rage unchecked because there is no pain signal to drive them to seek help. Their lifespan is often tragically shortened. Pain, for all its fierce intensity, is what keeps us intact. It is the body's ultimate expression of self-care. Its absence proves that survival hinges on the unpleasant yet essential warning that damage is occurring. The phantom and the emotional echo. Pain also reveals the profound truth that the ultimate location of the sensation is the brain, not the injured tissue. The phenomenon of phantom limb pain illustrates this with eerie clarity. An amputee may experience intense, often burning or cramping pain emanating from a foot or hand that is no longer physically present. The limb is gone, yet the pain is devastatingly real. This happens because the brain's internal body map, the homunculus we will explore later, has not erased the missing limb. Neurons that once processed input from the limb are now firing spontaneously or are being invaded by neighboring cortical regions, leading the brain to generate the perception of pain from the missing body part. It is a sensory illusion, a broken feedback loop where the brain's expectation clashes with reality. Furthermore, the sense of pain is not restricted to physical damage. Your brain treats emotional pain with surprising literalness. Studies using fMRI scans reveal that the same brain regions activated by a scalding burn, the insula and the cingulate cortex, also light up when a person experiences social rejection or profound grief. The phrase, "a broken heart," is therefore not just a poetic flourish. It is a description of a genuine, shared neurological pathway. The brain registers a threat to social connection or self-identity with the same urgency it reserves for a physical wound. As you rest now, acknowledge the subtle presence of this essential guardian. Any lingering stiffness in your neck, a dull ache in a joint, or the gentle, distant memory of an old injury, these are residual messages from a system that is continuously scanning for your safety. Pain is a difficult, fierce form of interoception. It is the loud, urgent alarm designed not to punish, but to force attention and demand rest. It is the sensory underpinning of caution, healing, and self-preservation. Though we seek comfort, it is the pain pathways that ultimately keep the entire structure functional, durable, and wonderfully, fiercely alive. But now, let us move from the fierce intensity of the alarm to the quiet, pervasive awareness of the environment that surrounds and penetrates you. The subtle, essential detection of thermal energy. The alarm has sounded, and the body has noted the threat. Now, how does the body regulate itself against the silent, invisible flow of energy? The sense of temperature is more than just hot and cold. It is the detection of energy itself, and it is governed by microscopic molecular gates. We will explore the thermal deception in the next chapter. Chapter 6. The Energetic Veil, Thermoception. As you rest, shielded by blankets and warmed by the quiet engine of your own metabolism, consider the silent, continuous communication happening between your body and the environment. This dialogue is orchestrated by the hidden sense of thermoception, your extraordinary ability to feel and regulate temperature. Thermoception is far more fundamental than simply telling you to put on a coat or open a window. It is the core mechanism that allows your body to detect energy, the subtle, pervasive flow of heat and cold that determines the stability of all living systems. Without it, you could not maintain the delicate internal balance required for life, and you would be perilously unaware of threats from frostbite or heat stroke. Drift with me now, and let us explore the molecular elegance of this thermal sense, a system based on tiny, guarded doorways within your cell membranes. The detection of temperature begins in specialized sensory nerve endings within your skin and, profoundly, deep within your body core. These receptors are not passive thermometers. They are sophisticated molecular sensors, primarily belonging to a family of proteins called transient receptor potential channels, or TRP for short. Visualize these TRP channels as microscopic, specialized gates embedded in the surface of your nerve cells. Each gate is tuned to a specific thermal range. Some channels, like TRPV1, are activated only by intense heat, responding to temperatures above 42 degrees Celsius. This is the scalding threshold, the temperature at which the heat becomes painful. Other channels, like TRPM8, are activated by cold, opening when temperatures drop below about 26 degrees Celsius. This is the refreshing jolt of cold water or the sensation of cool air. When the environmental temperature meets the specific threshold of a TRP gate, the gate swings open, allowing a rush of ions to enter the nerve cell. This creates an electrical signal, an urgent message that travels to your brain, translating the environmental energy directly into the subjective feeling of warmth or chill. The deception of flavor. What is truly fascinating is that these thermal gates are chemically cross-wired. They don't only respond to actual temperature, they can be fooled by certain molecules. Consider the cooling sensation of menthol in mint or chewing gum. Menthol does not actually cool your body, it is merely a chemical that binds to the TRP8 cold receptor. The cold gate swings open, sends its signal to the brain, and you experience the undeniable feeling of coolness even though no actual thermal change has occurred. It is a convincing, refreshing deception. The opposite occurs with capsaicin, the compound that gives chili peppers their fiery heat. Capsaicin binds to the TRPV1 heat-sensitive channel, the same one that screams at a scalding burn. The brain receives a high alert signal, interpreting it as if your mouth were literally on fire. Your body responds accordingly. You sweat, your nose runs, and you experience the uncomfortable flush of intense, perceived heat. This is your thermoception system responding to a perfectly legal culinary thermal illusion. The core thermostat, the hypothalamus. While the skin reports on the surface temperature of the world, your most vital thermal monitoring is done deep within your core. Here, a small, mighty structure in your brain, the hypothalamus, acts as the master thermostat of your body. The hypothalamus continuously monitors the temperature of the blood flowing through it, comparing this core temperature against a precise set point, typically around 37 degrees Celsius. This is the ideal operating temperature for the vast network of proteins and enzymes that govern your biological functions. When your core temperature begins to drift, even by a fraction of a degree, the hypothalamus initiates automatic, non-conscious responses to bring things back into balance. If you are too hot, for example, during vigorous exercise, The hypothalamus triggers the dilation of blood vessels near the skin, vasodilation, and activates sweat production. This allows heat to radiate away from the body, cooling you down. If you are too cold, e.g., stepping out on a brisk night, the hypothalamus triggers the constriction of blood vessels near the skin, vasoconstriction, to minimize heat loss, and initiates shivering, rapid, involuntary muscle contractions designed to generate internal heat. You may not be consciously tracking the exact temperature of your blood, but your interoceptive system, guided by the hypothalamus, is constantly managing this life and death thermal equilibrium. The paradox of fever. This thermal control center becomes particularly dramatic during a fever, which reveals the brilliance of the body's defensive strategy. When your immune system detects an invading pathogen, a virus or bacteria, it releases chemical messengers called pyrogens. These pyrogens travel to the hypothalamus and effectively raise the temperature set point. Imagine your internal thermostat is suddenly bumped from 37 to 39 degrees Celsius. Even though your blood temperature hasn't changed yet, your body believes it is now 2 degrees Celsius too cold. This sensory mismatch is what triggers the feeling of chills and shivering. You wrap yourself in blankets, your muscles contract violently, and you seek external heat. The body is frantically working to reach the new, artificially high set point, which is an environment less hospitable to the invading microbes. A fever is not an accident. It is a deliberate, energy-intensive defense mechanism orchestrated by the thermoceptive system. Once the body has fought off the infection, the pyrogens clear and the hypothalamus resets the set point back to 37 degrees Celsius. Now the current 39 degrees Celsius feels dangerously hot. This is when the fever breaks. The body initiates massive sweating and vasodilation to rapidly shed the excess heat, leaving you drenched and finally cooling down. Thermal comfort and emotional connection. Thermoception also weaves itself into our emotional and psychological experience. We often equate physical warmth with social warmth, with comfort, safety, and affection. Psychologists have found that simply holding a warm drink can temporarily make people feel more generous, trusting, and empathetic toward others. The sensory experience of warmth acts as a primal, comforting shortcut in the brain, linking physical temperature to emotional climate. Conversely, intense cold can be associated with emotional distance or isolation. We speak of receiving a cold shoulder or feeling frozen out, language that reflects the deep, intuitive connection between our thermal experience and our social reality. As you drift now, notice the comforting warmth around you. This is not just a passive state. It is an active signal that your system is in balance, that your internal thermostats are operating smoothly, and that your microscopic thermal gates are maintaining their peace. Every breath you take, every tiny shift in blood flow beneath your skin is part of this silent, continuous thermal management. The sense of temperature is a gentle, pervasive reminder that you are a living, responsive organism, constantly negotiating the subtle, energetic boundary between your inner world and the outer environment. It is the wisdom that ensures you are safe, stable, and perfectly positioned for rest. In the next chapter, we will return to the realm of movement, but explore how the brain's map of the body, its physical self-image, can become profoundly confused, creating a vivid, felt reality that is entirely an illusion. Your body's map is usually accurate, but what happens when the physical territory vanishes? The brain is stubborn. It clings to its internal representation of the self, sometimes generating sensations from a limb that no longer exists. We will explore the eerie persistence of the body image in the next chapter. Chapter 7: The Illusion of Flesh, Phantom Limbs and Body Maps. As you lie in the quiet certainty of your own body, take a moment to confirm your edges. You know where your hand rests. You feel the presence of your feet. This feeling of body ownership, the unwavering sense that this is mine and I am here, is so fundamental that we never question it. It is the core architectural pillar of the self. But what if that pillar suddenly vanished? What if the physical territory was erased, yet the feeling of it remained, vivid and often agonizingly real? Drift with me now into one of the strangest, most poignant neurological phenomena, phantom limb syndrome. This is the profound, confusing experience where an individual who has lost a limb, an arm, a leg, a hand, continues to feel sensations, sometimes excruciating pain, emanating from the missing body part. It is a surprisingly common experience. Estimates suggest that up to 90% of people who undergo amputation will experience some form of phantom sensation. These sensations are not vague whispers. They can be incredibly detailed. The feeling of a wedding ring still on the missing finger, the urge to scratch an itch on a lost foot, or the intense, burning pain of a clenched fist where a hand no longer exists. To understand this illusion, we must revisit the concept of the brain's internal blueprint of the body. Neuroscientists call this the body schema or the body matrix. Imagine your brain contains a meticulously detailed three-dimensional map of your physical form. Every nerve ending, every muscle, every joint is represented by a cluster of dedicated neurons within the sensory and motor areas of the cortex. This map is not etched in stone. It is flexible, constantly updated by the continuous feedback loops of touch, proprioception, and vision. When a limb is amputated, the physical source of the input, the nerve endings, the muscle spindles, the skin receptors, is gone. The brain suddenly receives no feedback from a large region of its map. The dedicated cortical territory for that missing hand or foot does not simply vanish or go dark. It becomes starved of its expected sensory input. This absence creates a kind of neurological vacuum. The brain, abhorring a gap, does what it always does. It improvises. The neurons that once monitored the missing limb remain active, sometimes firing spontaneously, or, more commonly, they begin to be invaded or taken over by the sensory input from neighboring body parts on the cortical map. For instance, the cortical area representing the face is often located immediately adjacent to the area representing the hand. When the hand's input is lost, touching the patient's face might sometimes be interpreted by the brain as a sensation or pain coming from the missing hand. The brain is misinterpreting the input due to the reorganization of its map.
The phantom limb, therefore, is not a memory or an emotional projection. It is a neurological artifact, the persistence of the brain's internal model long after the physical reality has changed. It is the stubbornness of the map, overwhelming the evidence of the territory. The problem of the frozen phantom. One of the most agonizing aspects of phantom limb pain is the feeling that the missing limb is held in a painful, unnatural position, often cramped, twisted, or clenched tightly into a fist. This sensation stems from a fundamental sensory mismatch. When you decide to move your arm, your brain sends a motor command down the motor nerves. When the arm is present, the proprioceptors and touch sensors send back an immediate sensory confirmation. Command received, movement executed, fist unclenched. This completes the feedback loop. In the case of the phantom limb, the brain sends the command to unclench the imaginary fist, but because the limb is gone, no sensory confirmation returns. The loop is broken. The brain concludes by default that the command failed, and the phantom limb remains painfully stuck in its cramped position. It is a terrifying sensory illusion built on the failure of feedback. The mirror solution. The understanding of this broken loop led to one of the most innovative and revealing treatments for phantom limb pain, mirror therapy. Developed by neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran, the technique is deceptively simple yet brilliantly effective. The patient places their existing healthy limb inside a specialized box with a mirror, arranged so that the mirror reflection makes it appear as though the missing limb is present. When the patient moves their intact limb, they see the reflection of the missing limb moving in perfect synchrony. The brain receives powerful, clear visual confirmation that the command to move has been successfully executed. The visual signal, being the loudest and most persuasive sense, overrides the missing proprioceptive feedback. The brain is momentarily tricked. It sees the phantom hand unclench, stretch, and relax. And astonishingly, for many patients, this sensory reconciliation leads to an immediate, profound relief from years of agonizing phantom pain. The brain, having been provided with a coherent visual narrative, updates its internal map and releases the neurological tension. This technique is a powerful demonstration of multisensory integration and the malleability of the self. It shows that your sense of body ownership is not an immutable fact, but a flexible model that can be instantly warped, broken, or repaired by changing the blend of sensory input. Expanding the boundary of self. The phantom limb illustrates the deep commitment of the brain to its own map, but sensory illusions show how easily the boundaries of the self can be manipulated even in a healthy individual.
Recall the rubber hand illusion we mentioned earlier. A person's real hand is hidden, and a fake rubber hand is placed in view. When both hands are stroked simultaneously, the brain, seeking consistency between what it sees, vision, and what it feels, touch, integrates the rubber hand into its body schema. People feel the rubber hand is their own, demonstrating that the self can extend and incorporate inanimate objects based on synchronized sensory input. More dramatically, the reverse can also happen. In a rare condition called somaparaphernia, usually following brain damage, patients may not only deny their disability, but also deny ownership of a perfectly healthy, functioning limb. They may insist that the arm lying beside them belongs to the doctor, a sister, or a roommate. They are intellectually aware the arm is attached, but the feeling of ownership, the anchor of the sense of self, has vanished due to a glitch in the brain's map. These extraordinary conditions, from phantom limbs to rubber hands to disowned arms, are not just clinical oddities. They are profound philosophical windows into the architecture of consciousness. They teach us that the feeling of being embodied is not a static reality, but a continuous, active construction, an ongoing agreement between dozens of sensory inputs. Your brain is not a passive recipient of signals. It is a master editor and storyteller, constantly weaving fragments of sensation, memory, and prediction into the cohesive, localized experience of you. Your body as you lie here is not just a container for your consciousness. It is the narrative scaffolding upon your sense of self is built, constantly confirming and reconfirming its presence, its position, and its ownership. The phantom reminds us that even when the body changes, the brain's dedication to its own internal story of you remains fiercely, beautifully persistent. But the body also has a sense that guides the rate and pace of action, a quiet governor of energy output, telling you not where you are, but how much effort you are expending. The body is mapping itself, even in absence. Now let us consider the hidden gauge that determines whether you push harder or stop to rest. The sense of effort is not just about muscle fatigue. It is a negotiation between mind and body, influenced by belief, context, and motivation. We will measure the wisdom of effort in the next chapter. Chapter 8, The Governor of Energy, the Sense of Effort. You are resting, but even in this deep stillness, your body maintains a complex internal economy. It manages resources, tracks energy expenditure, and continuously makes decisions about when to press on and when to conserve. This process is governed by a fascinating and often overlooked hidden sense, the sense of effort, or the perception of exertion.
Unlike pain, which screams for attention, or touch, which is immediate and localized, the sense of effort operates like a quiet governor on your motor systems. It is the internal gauge that measures how hard you are working, how sustainable your current activity is, and ultimately what your capacity for further action might be. It is the silent negotiation between your intention and your physiology, and it governs every single action, from carrying a heavy grocery bag to sustaining a long thought. Drift with me now, and let us explore how this subtle sense is constructed, revealing that effort is not just a physical truth, but a neurological interpretation. The experience of effort is not rooted in a single receptor, but is a profound blend of signals integrated across multiple hidden senses and cognitive systems. It is both sensation and perception, raw data combined with a complex, subjective interpretation. Raw physiological data. This comes from the body's hard facts, the stretch and tension messages from proprioception, muscle spindles, and Golgi tendon organs, the rise in heart rate and breathing, monitored by interoception, and the buildup of certain metabolites in the muscles. These signals are the objective cost of the action. The motor command signal, corollary discharge. As the brain sends a command to the muscles to contract, it generates an internal copy of that command, known as a corollary discharge. This internal signal is perhaps the strongest component of the sense of effort. The louder the motor command the brain has to send to perform a task, e.g. lifting a very heavy weight, the greater the effort the brain perceives. In essence, you feel the effort not just from the muscles, but from the command itself. Context and interpretation. This is the cognitive layer. The brain weighs the raw data and the motor command against factors like fatigue, motivation, emotional state, and previous experience. This interpretation is what ultimately determines your subjective feeling of difficulty. The rating of perceived exertion, RPE. In the world of sports science, this sense is quantified using the rating of perceived exertion, RPE, often measured on a scale from 6, no exertion, to 20, maximal exertion. This metric, deceptively simple, emphasizes a powerful truth. Effort is fundamentally subjective. If you are running a marathon, two runners side by side may have identical heart rates, identical oxygen consumption, and identical levels of muscle fatigue. Objectively, their bodies are doing the same work. Yet one runner may rate their effort as a 15, hard, while the other rates it as an 18, very hard. This difference highlights the brain's power to modulate the signal. Effort is the brain's safety buffer, a mechanism designed to encourage the conservation of energy and prevent catastrophic failure. But this buffer is highly flexible and subject to mental influence. Imagine two scenarios for lifting the same heavy stone.
Scenario A. You are told the stone is a priceless relic, and lifting it successfully means saving your family. Scenario B. You are told the stone is worthless, and you are simply moving it for no reason. In scenario A, the task will feel easier despite the identical physical workload. The brain, motivated by the high reward and emotional context, effectively turns down the perceived effort signal. It recalibrates the cost-benefit analysis, allowing you to push closer to your absolute physical limit. This is the mental fuel of the sense of effort, demonstrating that what we believe about a task is as important as the metabolic cost of performing it. The pacing mechanism. The sense of effort is your primary tool for pacing over time. It allows you to regulate your behavior so that you don't exhaust your resources too early. Consider a long, slow climb up a tall hill. Your effort sense is continuously monitoring your rising heart rate and muscle strain. It feeds this information to your planning circuits, allowing you to decide, should I maintain this pace or slow down to ensure I reach the summit? This is a continuous, moment-by-moment dialogue between your body's current state and your goal-oriented mind. If this sense is disrupted, pacing becomes impossible. People with certain neurological conditions may find their sense of effort is either dramatically amplified, making simple movements feel agonizingly difficult, or attenuated, leading them to overexert themselves perilously because the body provides no warning. These clinical cases underscore how vital this governor is for the stability and sustainability of life. Effort in the mind. The feeling of exertion is not limited to physical motion. It is a powerful descriptor for mental and cognitive load as well.
Think about the feeling of intense concentration after hours of problem solving, or the exhaustion that settles in after a long, emotionally demanding conversation. Your body hasn't moved, but you describe yourself as being tired. This is because mental fatigue and physical effort share overlapping neural pathways, particularly in regions that manage attention, working memory, and glucose consumption. The brain, like any organ, consumes significant energy, and when the demand is high, the sense of effort kicks in. It tells you that resources are depleting, encouraging you to rest and conserve, even if the exertion was purely cognitive. This subtle, pervasive sense is what connects the physical self to the psychological self. The way you feel about your own exertion influences your choices, your mood, and your self-perception. Training the negotiator. Just as athletes train their muscles and proprioception, they also train their tolerance for perceived effort. This is not about making the body stronger. It is about teaching the brain to reinterpret the discomfort.
Through consistent, progressive training, the central nervous system slowly raises the threshold for alarm. The brain learns that the high heart rate and the burning muscle sensation are not signals of danger, but signals of adaptation and growth. The feeling of an 18 effort today may become a 15 effort next month, even though the objective work is the same. The brain's story about the sensation has changed. This is the power of mental framing, a key element in endurance, rehabilitation, and achieving difficult goals. By consciously focusing on the purpose of the effort, or by simply telling yourself, just 5 more minutes, I can tolerate this, you are engaging your higher cognitive functions to negotiate with the ancient conservative safety buffer of the sense of effort. As you rest now, acknowledge the quiet wisdom of this internal governor. It is the subtle voice that ensures you do not waste energy on the superfluous, but save it for the essential. It is the negotiator that balances your will to achieve with your need to survive, constantly guiding your pace through the long, quiet journey of life. It is this sense that allows you to feel the comfortable weight of your own fatigue right now and to surrender to the deep, restorative rest you seek. But the body's wisdom is not always obvious. Sometimes the brain's construction of reality is revealed only when the body is in motion, and that motion is coordinated with impossible precision. The body is a symphony of separate signals, yet our experience is seamless. This effortless coordination, blending sight, touch, and balance, is a quiet miracle. But what happens when the instruments of this orchestra play different tunes, and how does the brain resolve the conflict? We will explore this harmonious integration in the next chapter. Chapter 9: The Seamless Weave, Multi-Sensory Integration. You have explored the individual dancers in your internal sensory orchestra, the body map of proprioception, the internal state of interoception, the thermal gates of thermoception, and the stability of the vestibular system. Each sense is a marvel unto itself, a dedicated channel of information, but they rarely perform solo. Your experience of the world, the seamless, fluid reality you inhabit, is not a series of separate sensor readings, but a masterpiece of collaboration. This quiet, continuous blending of information from all channels is known as multi-sensory integration. It is the neurological magic that takes fragmented signals and stitches them together into a unified, beautifully coherent whole without needing your conscious oversight. Drift with me now, and let us witness this seamless weave, a process that ensures the simple act of standing, reaching, or speaking feels effortlessly real. Consider the quiet, continuous challenge of simply standing still. It is a profound act of integration. Your visual sense reports that the room is stationary. Your inner ears, through the vestibular system, monitor for the slightest head sway or tilt. Your proprioceptors in your ankles and knees track muscle tension and joint angle.
Simultaneously, the pressure receptors, touch, in the soles of your feet confirm the surface texture and the distribution of your weight. These four streams of data, vision, balance, body position, and touch, arrive at the brain's integration centers, particularly in the parietal cortex, at slightly different speeds. The brain must constantly filter, compare, and reconcile these inputs. It is making judgments in milliseconds. Is the slight swaying I feel from my inner ear real movement, or is the ground shifting? If my eyes say the world is moving, but my feet say the floor is stable, which signal do I trust? Most of the time, the brain finds a consensus, and the result is your stable, comfortable, upright posture. You feel grounded. The conflict and the illusion. The elegance of this process becomes strikingly clear when the senses disagree. This is the root of many disorienting, temporary illusions. Imagine stepping off a large, slow-moving escalator. For a moment, you may feel as though the stationary floor is rushing up to meet you, or that you are still drifting forward. Your visual sense and vestibular sense are telling the truth. The escalator was moving. But your brain has built a powerful, temporary predictive model based on that motion. When the motion suddenly stops, the model takes a moment to decay, creating a brief, illusory sensation of continued movement. This sensory confusion is magnified in the phenomenon of sensory mismatch, which is at the heart of motion sickness. The brain cannot tolerate persistent conflict. When the eyes and the inner ear present contradictory evidence, the brain often defaults to a survival mechanism, leading to nausea. But in less threatening scenarios, the brain will actively override a sense to maintain coherence. A famous example is the ventriloquist effect. When you watch a puppet speaking, you hear the words coming from the nearby ventriloquist, but you perceive the sound as originating from the moving mouth of the puppet. Your brain actively relocates the auditory signal to match the visual cue. Vision is so powerful, so dominant, that it actively edits the data from the less trusted sense, hearing, to create a single, unified reality. The eyes tell the ears where the sound should be. The synesthetic weave. The close-knit relationships between the senses are made strikingly visible in the rare neurological condition known as synesthesia. This is a cross-wiring where the stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to an involuntary experience in a second pathway. For some synesthetes, hearing a sound might automatically trigger the perception of a color, chromesthesia. Others may taste shapes or see letters and numbers as specific colors, grapheme color synesthesia. In all brains, the sensory pathways run close to one another, often sharing subtle connections. In the synesthetic brain, these connections are hyperactive, shining the light on the fact that your senses are never truly separate. They are different expressions of the same continuous neural fabric. In the non-synesthetic brain, this connection may simply manifest as an intuitive link, the feeling that a high-pitched sound is lighter or a low-pitched sound is heavier. The adaptability of the system. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of multisensory integration is its capacity for plasticity and adaptation when one sense is lost. The brain does not simply mourn the lost input, it repurposes the unused real estate. In individuals who are blind, the regions of the cortex typically devoted to visual processing, the visual cortex, do not go silent. Instead, they can become recruited and rewired to process information from the remaining senses, especially touch and hearing. Studies show that when a blind person reads Braille, the visual cortex can actually light up. The brain is literally using the area once dedicated to seeing light to process the intricate texture of the Braille dots. Touch, in this context, becomes a form of seeing. This neuroplasticity has inspired the development of sensory substitution devices, or SSDs. One remarkable example is the BrainPort, a device that allows blind individuals to see through their tongues. A small camera captures the visual world, and the light patterns are converted into corresponding patterns of electrical stimulation delivered to an array of electrodes placed on the tongue. The resulting sensation is not taste, but a kind of buzzing, tickling pattern. At first, the user only feels the tickle, but with hours of integration and practice, the brain successfully maps the tactile pattern back onto the visual space. Users eventually report that they are no longer feeling their tongue being stimulated. They are experiencing a sense of space and form in the world around them. They are, in a very literal sense, seeing the world through touch. This is the ultimate proof of sensory integration. The senses are defined not by the receptor they use, but by the information they transmit. The brain is a pragmatist. If the data is reliable, it will incorporate it into the cohesive tapestry of reality, even if it comes through an entirely novel pathway. The symphony of self. Every quiet moment of your existence is a testimony to this integration. The pleasure of a warm drink is not just the warmth, thermoception, and the taste, chemoception, but the comforting weight, proprioception and touch, and the satisfying sound of the sip, hearing, all blur together into the single cozy experience.
This seamless weave is what makes the world feel stable, reliable, and unified. Your senses are not separate doors. They are windows in a circular room, each one looking out onto the same landscape, and their reports are constantly cross-referenced and edited to ensure a continuous, coherent story of the world. As you drift now, feel the harmony of this process, the balance, the touch, the internal rhythm, the quiet knowledge of where you are. All are working in unison. You are a multi-sensory symphony, always playing, always adapting, and always translating the chaos of the universe into the calm, predictable structure of your own reality. This harmonious structure is so essential that the brain dedicates specialized, exaggerated space to its key players, creating a profoundly distorted internal self-portrait. The brain's map of your body is not proportional to reality. Instead, it is a grotesque, beautifully distorted caricature with massive hands and lips and a tiny torso. In the next chapter, we will meet this strange internal self-portrait, the homunculus, and see how the brain prioritizes its most sensitive zones. Chapter X, The Grotesque Portrait, Meeting the Homunculus. You have traveled through the invisible pathways and internal rhythms of your body, sensing the subtle whispers of your hidden world. Now, let us venture into the very core of your sensory self-representation to meet a creature both profoundly strange and scientifically beautiful, the somatosensory homunculus. Imagine a tiny, grotesquely distorted person living inside your brain. This figure is not proportional to the size of your physical body. Instead, it possesses comically oversized hands, enormous swollen lips, and a colossal tongue, while the rest of its body, the back, the thighs, the torso, is shrunken and barely noticeable. This bizarre, lumpy caricature is the homunculus, and it is the most honest self-portrait your brain possesses. The homunculus is not a literal creature, but a map, a visualization of how much dedicated neurological real estate different parts of your body occupy within your somatosensory cortex. This strip of neural tissue is located in the parietal lobe, just behind the central fissure that divides the brain, and it is the region responsible for processing touch, temperature, pain, and proprioception signals. Drift with me now and visualize this map. The space allocated to any given body part is not determined by its physical size, but by its sensitivity and its functional importance, the shared density of sensory nerve endings it contains. Sensory royalty. Why the exaggerated features? Because your hands, especially the fingertips, are the sensory royalty of your body. They are the primary tools of exploration, manipulation, and communication. A fingertip can feel the faint vibration of a buzzing phone, distinguish the texture of silk from sandpaper, or precisely adjust the grip
on a delicate object. To handle this immense influx of fine-grained data, the brain dedicates a vast, disproportionately large area of cortex to them. Similarly, the lips and tongue are immense on the homunculus because of their essential role in speech, taste, and emotional expression. They require exquisite sensitivity for articulation, feeding, and social bonding. They are sensory gateways, and the brain allocates them the necessary processing power to manage their complex functions. Conversely, large areas of the body, such as the skin of the back or the thighs, have lower nerve density. They are important for posture and support, but are less critical for fine discrimination. Thus, they are represented by much smaller areas on the homunculus. This internal self-portrait is a powerful reminder that the brain does not care about physical symmetry. It cares intensely about functional utility. The motor homunculus. The sensory map is paired with a neighboring, equally distorted figure, the motor homunculus. This map, located just forward of the central fissure in the motor cortex, represents how much brain power is dedicated to controlling movement in different body parts. Unsurprisingly, the motor homunculus also possesses massive hands, fingers, lips, and tongue. This reflects the incredible fine motor control required for precision tasks, playing an instrument, writing, using tools, or producing the complex, rapid movements of speech. Together, the sensory and motor homunculi show us that much of your mental real estate is devoted to the tasks of touching, feeling, and moving with precision. Neuroplasticity, the shifting self. The homunculus is a powerful visualization, but it holds an even deeper secret. It is not fixed. It is made of living, adaptable neural tissue. The map can be continuously redrawn and reorganized through a process known as neuroplasticity. The phrase "use it or lose it" applies, but in a more dynamic way: use it and grow it. Skill acquisition. When you learn a new high-precision skill, the corresponding area on the homunculus will physically expand. For example, studies have shown that professional violinists develop an enlarged cortical representation for the fingers of their left hand, the hand used for precise string placement. A tactile artist or a professional braille reader will show increased sensitivity and cortical area dedicated to their fingertips. The brain rewards investment by dedicating more computational space to the well-practiced function. You have explored the hidden senses of the human body. Now let us expand our view to the natural world. How does a robin navigate across oceans without a map? How does a snake see in absolute darkness? We will explore the exotic sensory world of animals and what their hidden talents reveal about our own limits in the next chapter. Chapter 11, Beyond the Five, the Exotic Senses of the Animal World. We have focused intensely on the hidden internal genius of the human body, uncovering the subtle senses that keep you balanced, aware, and embodied. But as you settle deeper into the quiet, let us lift our gaze and expand our sensory imagination to the vast, shimmering world beyond our skin, a world perceived in ways we can only begin to grasp. Drift with me now, and let us explore the exotic sensory landscape of the animal kingdom. This realm operates not on 5 nor 10, but on dozens of unique channels, revealing that our human reality is but one narrow slice of the universe's full sensory spectrum. Evolution is the ultimate inventor, and if a novel sense aids survival, nature will find a way to build it. The compass within, magnetoreception. Imagine a life without maps, without sun or stars, yet possessing the unwavering certainty of direction. This is the reality for creatures tuned into the planet's fundamental force, magnetoreception, the ability to sense the Earth's magnetic field. Think of the robin we mentioned, or the tireless sea turtle navigating thousands of miles across featureless ocean. These creatures carry an internal biological compass. While the exact mechanism remains a topic of intense scientific research, two leading theories suggest astonishing sensory technology. Magnetite crystals. Microscopic crystals of magnetite, a naturally magnetic mineral, are believed to be located in specialized cells in the beaks of some birds and the brains of others. These crystals subtly shift in response to the magnetic field lines, triggering nerves that convey directional information. Quantum compass. Another more mind-bending theory involves quantum physics. Some species of migratory birds may possess light-sensitive proteins called cryptochromes in their eyes. When these proteins absorb blue light, they become chemically activated, and the subsequent chemical reaction is so delicate that it is influenced by the Earth's magnetic field. This could allow the bird to literally see the magnetic field, perhaps as a slight pattern or gradient overlaid on their visual field, like a subtle shimmering curtain indicating north and south. For these animals, the planet's magnetic grid is a permanent, reliable map, allowing them to maintain their bearings even in the murkiest water or the densest cloud cover. The magnetic field, invisible and unfelt by us, is a palpable truth for them.
Seeing heat, infrared thermoreception. Now shift your focus to the quiet, dark floor of a forest, where a pit viper lies coiled, waiting. Its vision is limited, but its world is illuminated by the invisible light of heat. The pit viper, which includes rattlesnakes and copperheads, possesses specialized structures called pit organs, tiny indentations located between its eyes and nostrils. These pits contain membrane sheets packed with highly sensitive TRP channels, similar to our own, but tuned to detect faint infrared radiation, the heat signature, emitted by warm-blooded prey, like a mouse or a rat. In the absolute darkness of night, to the pit viper, its prey doesn't just make a sound, it shines like a small, moving thermal lamp. The snake can build a complete, detailed, three-dimensional thermal image of its environment, striking with deadly accuracy purely on the radiant heat of its target. This is not vision as we know it, but a separate, dedicated sense for detecting the molecular vibration of energy itself. It is the biological equivalent of a high-tech night vision camera, confirming that our sense of temperature is a crude whisper compared to the viper's thermal roar. Feeling electricity, electroreception. Descend now into the murky, lightless depths of the ocean, where the waters blur sound and sight. Here, creatures like sharks and rays navigate using a sense that detects the fundamental force of life itself, electroreception. All muscle contraction, every nerve impulse, every cellular ion exchange in a living creature generates a tiny, faint bioelectric field. Sharks and rays are equipped to sense these fields using specialized sensory pores, called the ampullae of Lorenzini. These pores are small canals filled with a conductive jelly that open to the surface of the skin, mostly around the head and snout. They act as biological voltmeters, detecting even incredibly subtle voltage changes in the surrounding water, sometimes as faint as a few billionths of a volt. This sense allows a shark to hunt in the dark, locate a flatfish buried silently beneath the sand simply by sensing the faint electrical field generated by its gills moving, navigate, use the electric currents generated by ocean tides moving through the Earth's magnetic field to orient themselves over vast distances. For the shark, the environment is not silent or dark. It is filled with a dynamic, living electric hum, a continuous map of hidden life and geophysical forces. The pressure radar, lateral line system. Many fish, amphibians, and aquatic creatures possess another highly specialized sense, the lateral line system. This is a pressure sensing network that runs along the sides of the body, often visible as a faint, distinct line. The lateral line is composed of fluid-filled canals beneath the skin containing sensory hair cells, similar to those in our inner ear. These cells detect subtle changes in water flow and pressure. It allows a fish to sense vibrations, detect the movement of other fish in a school, allowing for synchronized swimming,
Avoid obstacles. Navigate obstacles in turbid water by sensing the pressure waves bouncing off them. Detect predators. Feel the approaching pressure wave of a larger, faster animal before it is seen. It is a continuous underwater tactile radar, giving the fish a comprehensive, real-time map of the hydrodynamic texture of its immediate environment. Our sensory keyhole. What these exotic animal senses reveal is profoundly humbling. The sensory reality available to us, defined by our 5 main senses, plus proprioception, interoception, balance, and thermal awareness, is incredibly rich, yet it remains fundamentally limited. Our human senses operate like a keyhole through which we view a vast, unbounded universe. We perceive the world within the narrow band of the visible light spectrum, hear only a limited range of sound frequencies, and feel only a fraction of the pressure and thermal gradients that exist. The robin, the snake, and the shark peer through entirely different keyholes, experiencing entirely different, equally valid aspects of reality. The planet is a chorus of magnetic fields, thermal gradients, and electric hums that we simply do not have the biological hardware to access. This realization transforms our appreciation of our own hidden senses. Our proprioception may not guide us across the magnetic ocean, but it perfectly guides us across an uneven floor. Our interoception may not detect bioelectric fields, but it perfectly monitors the subtle chemistry of our heart and gut. Our senses, both obvious and hidden, are perfectly optimized for the demands of being a human being: tool use, complex communication, bipedal locomotion, and social navigation. As you conclude this journey through the sensory world, let the knowledge of these exotic animal senses deepen your awe for the invisible world within you. The difference between you and the robin is not a measure of superiority, but a beautiful testament to evolutionary specialization. Every living creature, from the microscopic bacterium to the soaring hawk, carries a unique, perfectly tuned way of knowing the world. And now we turn to the final, fascinating question. Can the human mind, through intention and focus, learn to deliberately tune in to its own subtle internal broadcasts? Can we train our hidden senses? The body is a marvel, but can the mind influence its sensors? We will explore the science of attention and the practice of mindfulness, revealing how deliberate focus can amplify the quiet voice of interoception and change the physical structure of the brain itself. Chapter 12: The Quiet Amplifier: Mindfulness and the Training of Interoception. You have navigated the hidden architecture of your body, sensing the subtle whispers and the silent alarms. We have established that the human experience is built upon far more than the classic 5 senses. But the final, profound question is this: if these senses are mostly unconscious, can we, through intention and focus, learn to actively tune them? Can the mind deliberately amplify the subtle broadcasts of the body? Drift with me now into the fascinating intersection of ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience, where the practice of mindfulness is revealing itself to be a powerful, measurable way to sharpen our internal senses, particularly interoception. At its core, mindfulness is the practice of bringing your full attention to the present moment, observing sensations, thoughts, and emotions without judgment. This simple act of quiet attention, performed consistently, is not just a spiritual endeavor. It is a direct, measurable form of sensory training. Remodeling the sensory brain. When you sit quietly and focus on the felt experience of your body, the weight, the stillness, the breath, you are sending a clear, repetitive signal to your interoceptive system. Attention is now focused here. Report with greater detail. Scientifically, this practice has a profound physical effect on the brain. Neuroimaging studies using techniques like fMRI have shown that long-term meditators often exhibit functional and structural changes in key areas of the sensory network. Specifically, there is evidence of increased gray matter density and enhanced activity in the insular cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex. Recall that the insular cortex is the brain's primary integration center for interoceptive data, the region that translates raw physiological signals, like heart rate or stomach tension, into a subjective, felt experience, like anxiety or calm. By regularly directing attention to these internal signals, mindfulness effectively remodels the insula, making it a more efficient and sensitive receiver of the body's internal broadcasts. It's like upgrading your body's radio tower, resulting in a signal that is clearer, stronger, and less prone to static. The heartbeat detection test. One of the most objective measures of interoceptive sensitivity is the heartbeat detection task. In this experiment, participants are asked to silently count their own heartbeats for a set period without touching their pulse or using any external device. Their count is then compared to the actual recorded heartbeats. Individuals who regularly practice mindfulness or meditation consistently demonstrate higher accuracy in this task. Their brains are more finely attuned to the subtle pressure changes, blood flow dynamics, and neurosignals that accompany each beat. This isn't just a party trick. It signifies a more robust connection between the internal rhythm of the body and the cognitive awareness of the mind.
This heightened awareness is directly linked to improved emotional regulation. When you can sense stress or anxiety rising in your body, e.g., a subtle quickening of the pulse, a shallowing of the breath, at an earlier stage, you gain a crucial delay time. You move from reacting to the emotion to responding to the sensation. This ability to create space between the signal and the reaction is the foundation of emotional intelligence and resilience. Gateways into internal awareness. Mindfulness offers specific techniques that utilize the hidden senses as anchors. The body scan. This practice involves systematically moving attention through the body, from the tips of the toes to the crown of the head. You are not trying to relax or change the body, but simply to notice the sensations as they are: the mild pressure where the body meets the surface, the faint tingling in the extremities, the subtle muscle tension. This practice directly challenges and refines the integration of proprioception, thermoception, and light touch, turning the body's ambient sensory hum into a subject of deliberate focus. Breath following. As discussed in Chapter 3, the breath is the unique dual control function of the body. Focusing on the breath, the cool air entering, the warm air leaving, the rise and fall of the diaphragm, is the most accessible gateway to interoception. It allows you to deliberately engage the vagus nerve pathway, sending calming feedback to the autonomic nervous system. By consciously tracking the breath's rhythm, you create a tangible link between your mental state and your physiological rhythm. The poetic truth. The essence of this training is not about gaining new information, but about reintegrating what the body already knows. In our fast-paced, outwardly focused lives, we often rely on external metrics, the clock, the scale, the schedule, while systematically overriding internal ones: fatigue, hunger, tension. Mindfulness is the radical act of reprioritizing the internal wisdom. For individuals who have experienced trauma, chronic pain, or high anxiety, the body's internal signals can become distorted, dulled, or overwhelming. The heart racing might be interpreted as danger, not just exertion. By cultivating mindful awareness, the brain can be retrained to process these signals with greater equanimity and accuracy. The system learns that a quickened heart is a sensation that can be observed, rather than an emergency that demands panic. It is a quiet, gentle revolution. By slowing down and listening inward, you are using the incredible neuroplasticity of your brain to reestablish trust in your own physical presence. You shift from being a passenger in your body to being the attentive steward of your biological systems. As you settle deeper into your rest, understand that this journey through the hidden senses has been a profound act of mindfulness. You have used the power of attention to illuminate the vast, silent, and miraculously complex world that resides within you. The greatest science story is the one unfolding inside your own skin. In the final chapter, we will gather all these threads: proprioception, interoception, balance, and integration, to reflect on the deepest mystery of all: how these hidden senses construct your seamless, unshakable feeling of embodiment.
the quiet knowing of being you. You are here. You are present. All the hidden senses are working in harmony. But what is this you that is sensed? We will consider the final, beautiful mystery of embodiment, the fusion of sensation and selfhood, as we drift toward complete rest. Chapter 13, The Final Frontier, Embodiment and the Unshakable Self. You have traveled through the silent, profound wisdom of the hidden senses. Proprioception mapped your space. Interoception whispered your rhythm. Balance steadied your orientation. Pain guarded your boundaries. Together, these systems, along with the classic five, weave the complete, complex tapestry of human experience. But as our journey nears its close, we arrive at the final, most beautiful mystery: embodiment. What is this feeling, this unshakable, effortless certainty that you are you, contained right here, inside this specific body? How do all the scattered signals, the micro adjustments, the subtle shifts in thermal energy, and the quiet internal pulses fuse into a single, seamless, continuous sense of selfhood? Drift with me now, and let us gently conclude that the feeling of being embodied is not a static fact. It is a grand, dynamic construction built entirely from the relentless flow of sensory data. The self as a sensory field. Your brain does not perceive the body as a collection of separate parts. It maintains an integrated, three-dimensional body matrix that defines the boundaries and the contents of the self. This matrix requires continuous, non-stop confirmation from the hidden senses to remain stable. Proprioception confirms your location in space. I am sitting here, my leg is crossed. Interoception confirms your internal state. I am breathing steadily, my heart is calm. Multisensory integration ensures that the visual image of your body aligns perfectly with the feeling of your body. When all these systems agree, the result is the quiet, perfect feeling of being home in your own skin. This feeling of ownership, however, is astonishingly malleable, as we saw with the rubber hand illusion and phantom limb syndrome. The brain prioritizes consistency. If vision, touch, and proprioception can be tricked into a temporary, cohesive consensus, the brain will instantly and completely adopt the illusion.
The fact that the self can be temporarily extended to include a piece of rubber, or that the body map can stubbornly cling to a limb that is gone, reveals a vital truth. Selfhood is a working hypothesis. It is the brain's most efficient, moment-to-moment guess about where the organism begins and ends, based on the loudest, most coherent sensory data available. Tool embodiment, extending the self. The boundary of the embodied self is not limited to the skin. It is functionally stretchable. Consider the simple act of using a familiar tool, perhaps a writing pen, a tennis racket, or a long walking stick. When you use the tool, your brain rapidly extends its proprioceptive map to incorporate it. You stop feeling the pressure in your palm from holding the handle and start feeling the tip of the stick contacting the ground or the end of the racket striking the ball. Functionally, the tool has become a temporary, high-definition extension of your arm. This phenomenon, known as tool embodiment, demonstrates that your body schema is designed to be elastic. It includes anything that allows for functional interaction with the environment. Your sense of self is a practical, adaptive definition, expanding and contracting as your focus and tools change. The philosophical anchor of interoception. Among all the senses, interoception provides perhaps the deepest anchor for the sense of self. It is the continuous, non-voluntary report from the deep internal reality of the body, the heart, the lungs, the gut. Philosophically, René Descartes famously separated mind and body with his declaration, "I think, therefore I am." But modern neuroscience, heavily informed by the quiet work of interoception, suggests a revision. I feel the quiet, continuous rhythm of my body, therefore I am.
Studies have shown that individuals with strong interoceptive accuracy, those who are deeply attuned to their heartbeat and breath, tend to report a more stable, less disassociative sense of self. They feel more grounded in their emotional and physical responses. When the internal rhythm is clear, the self feels real. When the signal is fuzzed by stress, trauma, or illness, the feeling of self can become detached or unreal, leading to feelings of depersonalization, the unsettling sense of observing your life from afar. The quiet, insistent truth of your heartbeat is arguably the most fundamental way your biology affirms your existence. It is the continuous drumbeat beneath consciousness. The dance of consciousness. The most profound realization from our journey is that these hidden senses are the necessary scaffolding of consciousness. They provide the where and the how for the who you are. They explain the feeling of flow, those rare, immersive moments during deep concentration, creativity, or intense physical activity, where the inner narrator falls silent. In these moments, the boundary between the body and the world softens, and the action becomes effortless. The hidden senses, proprioception, balance, and effort, are running the entire show, performing with such perfect integrated coordination that the conscious mind no longer needs to intervene. The self is dissolved into the process, guided entirely by the body's internal ancient wisdom. This is the state of perfect embodiment, a place of quiet action and seamless knowing, where the body's hidden wisdom fully takes the reins. As you conclude this sensory exploration, let go of any effort to monitor your body. Let the knowledge you have gained dissolve into the quiet certainty of your rest. You do not need to command your senses. They are perfectly designed to manage themselves. You are an organism of magnificent, coordinated complexity. The hidden senses are your body's way of whispering the fundamental truth of your existence. You are here, not in coordinates, but in warmth, in weight, in balance, in breath, in the deep, quiet, unshakable knowing of being alive. May that quiet knowing be your anchor now. Feel the weight of your body, supported by the ground beneath you. Feel the slow, gentle rhythm of your breath, an effortless exchange between your internal world and the world outside. All the tiny, tireless engineers, the shimmering crystals, the specialized molecular gates, and the ancient nerve pathways are now settling into their deepest night watch, ensuring your safety, your stability, and your peaceful rest. You are safe. You are held. You are wonderfully complex. The full symphony of the hidden senses is now playing at its softest volume, guiding you gently towards sleep. All systems are go. All reports are filed. May your descent into dreams be as profound and seamless as the hidden processes that govern your waking life. Sleep well, and know that the miracle of your being is held by the quiet wisdom within.